Okay, it is 1 o'clock. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our event annual that we are very, very happy to be celebrating for the 3rd year to launch the annual monitoring report of the Women on Boards Observatory and to graduate a distinguished group of women from the Corporate Director Certification Program. First, I would like to welcome our dear guests, Dr. Maya Morsi, President of Egypt's National Council for Women, Ms. Christine Arab, Country Representative, UN Women Egypt Office, Dr. Per-Axel Frelingsdorf, I hope I got the name correctly, Chargé d'Affaires, the Embassy of Sweden in Cairo, Dr. Yahya Al-Husseini, Corporate Governance Project Manager, IFC, Dr. Mohammad Mustafa Siliman, Executive Director, Egyptian Institute of Directors, and of course, Dr. Mohamed Omran, Chairman of the Financial Regulatory Authority, who will be joining us later for the graduation ceremony. First, let me extend the apologies of Dr. Sharif Kamel, the Dean of the School of Business, who unfortunately is not feeling well. We wish him a speedy recovery. He has asked me to convey his best regards to all of you today, and he has asked me to deliver the following welcome note on his behalf. Good corporate governance helps firms improve performance, drive growth, and manage risk. To be truly effective, a board requires a diversity of skills and perspectives. In line with the School of Business strategy related to responsible business, the Corporate Governance Unit was created, and the mission of the Women on Boards Observatory was placed at the heart of corporate governance enhancement in Egypt. The Women on Boards Observatory was founded in 2017 by a consortium initiated by the American University in Cairo School of Business. We are very proud that the observatory is recognized as a specialized observatory within the framework of the National Council for Women, and advocates for the presence of 30% women on boards in Egypt by 2030 in alignment with the National Strategy for the Empowerment of Egyptian Women 2030. The 2020 Women on Boards Annual Monitoring Report that we are celebrating the launch of today shows that many companies and banks are true gender diversity champions. But still, there is much work to be done to reach the 2030 target of 30% women on board. Having a diversified board is more challenging than it sounds. Challenges include, but are not limited to, lack of awareness on the direct relationship between gender diversity and better business outcomes and profitability, and also not including men as active participants in the conversation through awareness-raising events and stakeholder policy dialogues so that we can achieve a greater impact. Our aim is to empower women to have equal opportunities while empowering men to take an active role in the attainment of gender diversity and inclusion. Without the engagement of men, efforts will be hindered. Sound corporate governance and gender equality are complex issues that require a multitude of sustained efforts and cannot be accomplished by any single organization. This is why we are particularly proud of the Women on Boards Observatory partners, many of whom are represented here today. Initiatives taken by the Financial Regulatory Authority under the leadership of Dr. Omran for non-banking financial services are considered an important step to improve corporate governance practices and increase female representation on the boards of EGX-listed companies and FRA companies. In 2019, UN Women partnered with the American University in Cairo to equip and expand a pool of women to be placed on boards through capacity building activities. We are celebrating the graduation of these women today. Within the framework of the joint program promoting productive employment and decent work for women in Egypt, Jordan, and Palestine, that is supported by the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDA, and jointly implemented by UN Women and the International Labour Organization, the Women on Boards Observatory was able to produce the 2020 Annual Monitoring Report and develop the Egypt Board Ready Women database, which we will also be presenting today. We would like to thank the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development, the National Council for Women, the Egyptian Exchange, the Ministry of Public Enterprise, and the Central Bank of Egypt for their support in producing this year's monitoring report. We also thank the American Chamber of Commerce Women in Business Committee, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the IFC, the Egyptian Institute of Directors, and the Women and Memory Forum for partnering with AUC in this important initiative. Over the past several years since the start of this initiative in 2014, and with the current strategy, approaches, direction, and cooperation of our valued partners, the Women on Boards Observatory has successfully achieved its expected outcomes and will continue building up and expanding on the scope of what was achieved. This concludes Dr. Sherif Kamil's welcome note. And now please allow me to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Maya Morsi. Dr. Morsi took office as President of Egypt's National Council for Women in 2016, elected as the third and the youngest president of the National Council for Women since it was established in the year 2000. 2017 was announced as the Year of Egyptian Women. Dr. Maya Morsi led the participatory process to develop Egypt's national strategy for the empowerment of women 2030, a rights-based strategy. The strategy, which was endorsed by the President of Egypt, was the first strategy globally to incorporate the Sustainable Development Goals agenda. In 2008, Dr. Morsi received a PhD in public policy with a focus on the human security of Arab women from the Institute of Arab Studies and Research of the League of Arab States. She completed 2 master's degrees at the City University of Seattle in Business Administration and Public Administration. And of course, most importantly for us, she received a bachelor's degree in political science from the American University in Cairo. Dr. Maya, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Ghada. It's a pleasure to be with you and in this annual ceremony to launch the Women on Board results. Really, I look forward every year to know the results and anxious to know the results of this report. I'm also very proud of the efforts of AUC regarding the Women on Board. It started as a report, now it's a policy document that highlights what we need and actually and also a training program. Providing for women and building their capacity to be well represented on boards with a strong performance. It's not only the number, but also the qualifications and the quality. The indicator of women representation on board is not just to have women represented or a tokenism. It's not for us the tokenism. This is just the first step. We need women to be well representative with highest performance level and be able to participate effectively within these boards. The Women on Board is aligned with the Egyptian strategy of women empowerment and its indicators, as well as the Egyptian Observatory as well. We have also included the Women on Board mechanism on the newly launched Closing the Gender Gap Accelerator mechanism in partnership with the Ministry of International Cooperation and the World Economic Forum as a main driver for change within the economic empowerment of women and action plan. The World Economic Forum were impressed with the Women on Board tool, and we will be building on it a lot to foster the cooperation between public and private sector to provide and enhance women economic empowerment. So congratulations, Ghada, for the great work and your team for the great presence as well. And for that, I can say that this mechanism is institutionalized within all of our plans and vision as a strong policy tool that helps us to close the gap of women representation within the sectors of the report. We're seeing a historic change and political will from the government of Egypt, actually by the highest level, the president directive to make sure women are represented within the public sectors, as you heard almost 2 days ago, and also breaking not melting the iron doors for entering into the public prosecution and the state's council as set forth in the Constitution 2014. And this is happening after 72 years. It was not an easy battle. We also witnessed the Egyptian president giving an explicit directive among many others for the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development, along with the National Council for Women, to continue following up on women's status within decision-making, positions and representations on boards. So also, Ghada, you will be moving with us, inshallah, on the official governmental report. Egyptian president also gave directives to the CBE to study the procedures and of explicitly prohibiting any gender-based discrimination in women's access to microfinance loans, which is also a great step. We also see the great determination of the champion, Dr. Mohamed Omran, FRA, on placing women on boards and creating an app to establish a database of women who are eligible and interested to be on boards of non-financial companies. This proves that having men leaders who are convinced with the cause and who are dedicated will make the change in the agenda of women empowerment at large, and we will make miracles with their support. Coupling these remarkable steps with announcing a code of ethics to make sure women are working in a safe work environment within financial companies make FRA a leader and a successful partner in providing a full-fledged vision of empowering women in all levels. Women in leadership positions and decision-making is not a luxury anymore, nor a dream anymore. This is our reality today. It is now that time for companies to realize that the significance of providing equal opportunities for women so they can be included within the decision-making level and in all leadership positions. Congratulations, Ghada, and your team for the great work, and looking forward to the results. I'm all ears and excited to see the numbers and the steps of achievements, as well as the challenges and how we can work further to make sure that, inshallah, we reach our 30% commitment by 2030. Thank you very much, Dr. Ghada and the team, and thanks to the AUC for the great work. Thank you very much. The floor is back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maya, and we are delighted to continue working with you at all levels. Thank you very, very much. Allow me now to please introduce Ms. Christine Arab, Country Representative, UN Women Egypt Country Office. Christine has worked on gender equality and the women's human rights in the UN system for over 20 years. She began her career with UN Women in Jordan in 1998 and has worked predominantly in and around the Arab states, Asia and the Pacific, the Balkans, the Caucasus, and the Caribbean. Welcome, Christine, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ghada, and it's a pleasure to be here. Her Excellency, Dr. Morsi, His Excellency, Dr. Omran, yourself, Dr. Howdy, Dr. Per Axel and the team at the Swedish Embassy, Dr. Mustafa, the director of EIOD, and Dr. Yihua. I'm the lone non-doctor in this group, but it is such a pleasure for us to be here and to partner with you all. And to the women that are graduating, congratulations on behalf of UN Women. This is a significant achievement, particularly when done in parallel to working and juggling family responsibilities in all of its forms in the midst of COVID-19. These women that are graduating, you all are models for both women and men in your companies and beyond. And it's hoped that you'll also become mentors to young women who are the frontline managers, with a view to eventually seeing them in the middle and to the senior management level. But that you also mentor young women to understand that they play a key role in contributing to supporting a gender equal environment. Reducing gender-specific barriers to women entering into and remaining, and that's a key part, remaining in the workforce, is one of the single most important investments Egypt can make to not only advance its vision of economic growth, but equally to advance the government's strong vision to ensuring a lived and breathed equality for women in all spheres of their life, including within their homes and within their families. And the greater leadership women have economically, the greater leadership they have outside of the home, the more impact that will have on the positive impact that will have on the family and the community. As you know, the International Women's Day celebrations and throughout the month of March are very focused this year on women's leadership, broadly interpreted. We know from the Fortune 500 global list of last year that 2.6% of CEOs were women. Now in the United States, we know the number of women running Fortune 500 companies has dramatically increased in recent years. And as of now, they have 37 women CEOs in the Fortune 500 companies in the United States, which is extremely impressive. But you were really brought down to earth quickly when you realize that that only constitutes a little over 7% of CEOs in that list. A global analysis in 2020 of over 1,000 organizations found that it's a really leaky pipeline for women in leadership in the private sector. Right now, worldwide, of those 1,000 companies, women hold only 20% of board director seats, only 29% of senior manager seats, as compared to constituting 42% of the overall professionals within those 1,000 companies. And it's that last figure of 42% of the professionals that tells us of the deep talent pool of women in most private sector companies. And yet they're not making it to the middle and senior level management. Recent pre-COVID estimates indicate that the world as a whole could increase its global GDP by 5.3 trillion US dollars by 2025, only by closing the gender gap in economic participation by 25% in that period of time. Yet according to the World Economic Forum, if we keep at our current rate worldwide, it will be 118 years before women have the same career prospects as men. So for companies to thrive and grow, corporate boardrooms need to reflect the diversity of its consumer base. And we know that right now, today, women account for about 70% of the global consumption demand, which equals about 28 trillion US dollars in annual consumer spending worldwide. And the language of return of investment, the trickle-down effect of women's greater economic engagement and leadership for the home, the community, and the country is immense. UN Women commends the government of Egypt, including the Financial Regulatory Authority and the National Council for Women. And we highly commend AUC's Women on Board Observatory for tracking and supporting the government in the tracking of the very important measures that have been adopted to advance women's leadership and their economic empowerment. UN Women and ILO's joint program on decent work, which is generously funded by the government of Sweden and implemented in partnership with the Ministry of Manpower and the National Council for Women, has worked a lot with private sector in Egypt to give legs to the national measures that have been adopted by the government on women's economic empowerment and leadership. Within private sector, we've supported targeted interventions in advancing family-friendly policies, such as paid maternity leave, breastfeeding policies, flexible hours, which are so key for women, particularly in this COVID era, and childcare subsidies in some cases, and also with important measures to advance women's leadership, including this really exciting partnership we've had with AUC for the last 3 years, in which we hope to grow and deepen. To many, these may seem like expensive investments, but we see time and again that the return on investment considerably exceeds any initial costs. And I think that my colleagues have outlined this very well, and Dr. Shahira in her opening speech outlined this. But we do know that global research shows that the main drivers of private sector to continue growing the leadership engagement of women have been enhanced innovation, fairness and equality, reflecting the customer base, enhanced decision-making, and accessing expanded talent pool. The impact of COVID-19 on women and men's labor force participation worldwide is significant. In the Arab region, ESCWA estimated in 2020 that up to $42 billion decline overall in GDP for the region because of COVID, and that would equal just in 2020 alone a loss of over 1.7 million people, a loss of jobs. In Egypt, prior to COVID-19, the women's labor force participation was at 15.6% and men's was at 67.3%. And we know, and it has been outlined by Dr. Morsi, that women working at a deficit to start with, compounded by crisis on top of, are really vulnerable to what can happen next. As women are encouraged to take leave from paid work to take on the greater unpaid care work within the home, their jobs are more likely to be affected by cuts and layoffs. And we know in Egypt, because the public sector under the government's leadership has made such important provisions, such as protecting women's jobs in the public sector, this is another reason why women are often drawn to work in the public sector. But that's not always the case in the private sector in Egypt. And based on a recent study that was done throughout the region with ERF, the Egypt-based ERF, and in the case of Egypt, the data is all grounded in CAPMAS data. And what it tells us is that Egyptian women, regardless if they're employed outside the home or not, spend over 9 times more than men in unpaid care work. As of 2017, there was 0.19 nurseries for every 100 children age 0 to 3 in Egypt, with an enrollment rate equaling then about 8% of that age group of the country. And for every 100 women of working age, there were around 129 dependents. So you see quite a mismatch between the care needs and the care services. But we see a lot of hope, because the paid care economy in Egypt also remains one of the, if not the fastest growing sector in the private sector in Egypt. And that is a twofold advantage for women, both as helping them to get out to the workforce, but also as a potential source of employment. On behalf of UN Women, it's a pleasure to be here recognizing the women of the 2020-2021 program who have graduated, which is a result of an excellent partnership of you all, AUC, Women on Board Observatory, IFC, the government of Egypt, and made possible, in our case, through the generous support of the government of Sweden. I want to thank all the companies who have supported and financed their pool of women talents for the scholarship that proves their commitment to gender equality. And I want to wish you all the best of luck in your board placements. And thank you again, Dr. Rada and team, for doing this. It's such a well-attended event. We're very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine, for those kind words, and thank you for the continued support of UN Women. Again, we look forward to continuing our collaboration with you. Allow me now to introduce Dr. Paraskil Frielingsdorf, who is a Swedish diplomat currently serving as the Chargé d'Affaires of Sweden in Egypt. Before that, he was at the permanent mission of Sweden to the United Nations in New York during Sweden's time as an elected member of the Security Council. In New York, he also served as the chair of the Security Council Informal Expert Group on Women, Peace and Security. Dr. Paraskil, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hada. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to join you today to celebrate the graduation of 78 women from the AUC Corporate Director Certification Program. I'm also glad to see all the distinguished partners coming together today. As you all know, gender equality is a top priority for the Swedish government, just as it is for the Egyptian government. Sweden had the world's first feminist government and also the world's first feminist foreign policy. In Egypt, the Swedish Embassy and the Sweden's International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDA, are working closely together with the Egyptian partners, such as Dr. Maya Morsi and the National Council for Women, as well as UN agencies like UN Women and Christine Arab, to promote gender equality and women's economic empowerment. For us, it is important to work on long-term projects to achieve structural change for a better future for all. And that is why it gives me a special pleasure to see that Sweden and SIDA have supported this program, as you, the graduates of the Corporate Directors Certification Program, will be the future executives and leaders of Egypt. To achieve the huge potential of Egypt, we need to have both women and men on board, but also on the boards. And to achieve gender equality, we also need to have both the public and the private sector on board. I am very impressed by the vision of Egypt when it comes to working for inclusiveness and for women's economic empowerment, and by the many measures mentioned by previous speakers to enhance the role of women on company boards. And I think together we can really achieve miracles, as Dr. Mohammad said. But I think as governments, we can only do so much. Real change is brought about by brave individuals. 2 days ago, one such brave individual, Nawal al-Saadawi, sadly passed away. Nawal al-Saadawi herself was once called a savage and dangerous woman, to which she replied, I am speaking the truth, and the truth is savage and dangerous. One of the truths that Nawal al-Saadawi spoke was the following, and I'm quoting her now. Women are half the society. You cannot have a revolution without women. You cannot have democracy without women. You cannot have equality without women. You can't have anything without women. I think this is a truth worth remembering in everything we do. And I hope that all of you who graduate today in your careers will be just such savage and dangerous women, because those are the women who can change the world. And without them, you can't have anything. Earlier this month, the embassy, together with UN Women, hosted an online Wikipedia editing session to close the gender gap on the internet. And this wiki gap resulted in more than 1,000 new or improved articles about women leaders on Arabic Wikipedia. And it's really my hope that in the future we will read on Wikipedia about all of the fantastic women who are graduating today, as I'm sure you will become the leaders of Egypt and the world in the future. But leadership is not just about having the right qualifications. It's also about networking and making the right connections. Several studies in Sweden have shown that, in particular when it comes to being elected as a member of a board, this is very often done through recommendations via networks. And this is why I'm very happy to announce today that we at the Swedish Embassy will be hosting an annual networking event for all the graduates today. And we'll start, of course, as soon as the pandemic allows us to meet physically in greater numbers. And gender equality is not just a priority for the Swedish government, but also for the Swedish business sector. And gender equality must be homegrown. It needs to be promoted by the management, but it also needs to be formed and adopted by all of an organization and all of society. It's an agenda of its own, but it's also about mainstreaming in everything we do, internally and externally. The Swedish business community in Egypt promotes gender equality by providing equal career opportunities to men and women, but they also show how gender equality and sustainable development can be leveraged as a competitive advantage and pave the way for new business opportunities. Women's economic empowerment is a promise for growth. When more women are included, the economy grows and everyone will be better off. So gender equality is simply everybody's business. And we are looking forward to continuing working on advancing women's and girls' rights together with all of you today. So allow me at the end to congratulate again all the graduates today, and also to congratulate Egypt and all the companies where you will be working as the leaders of the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for these very important remarks, and thank you for the idea of the annual networking event. We will be delighted to participate in this, and this has been part of the DNA of the Women on Boards Observatory, is to tap into the networks that exist, whether it's Business Women of Egypt network or the Top 50 Women, or regional networks through the Boardroom Africa or the Arab International Women's Forum or 30% Club MENA. So this is something that is absolutely important, and we're delighted to be working with you on this. We will now turn to the video that shows the highlights of the 2020 Annual Women on Boards Monitoring Report. We're very proud that this is the third consecutive year for the Women on Boards Observatory to produce this report. And we're also delighted that this year's results show significant improvement in the indicators. The highlights of the report are now available on the website of AUC, as well as the detailed English report. The Arabic version is currently being translated and will follow shortly. Enjoy the video. Aya, please, shall we have the video?
Egypt Women on Boards Observatory, founded in 2017 by AUC School of Business, is recognized as a specialized observatory within the framework of the National Council for Women. It aims to increase the representation of women on corporate boards in Egypt to reach 30% by 2030. The 2020 Annual Monitoring Report tracks the representation of women on the boards of EGX-listed companies, the banking sector, the public enterprise sector, and FRA companies. The report also identifies the gap to reach the 2030 target of 30% women on boards. The 2020 Women on Boards indicator is 13% compared to 10% in 2019 due to the entrance of 136 new women to the boards of companies. There are 714 women on boards out of a total of 5,506 board members in the categories included in this report. In the following section, we will review the key takeaways for each category. EGX-listed companies, 239 companies marked a positive increase in female representation on boards from 10.1% in 2019 to 11.6% in 2020, due to the entry of 23 women to the boards of EGX-listed companies. The percentage of EGX-listed companies with 0 women on boards decreased from 53.5% in 2019 to 42.7% in 2020. The percentage of EGX-listed companies with at least 1 woman on their boards increased from 46.5% in 2019 to 57.3% in 2020. 8.4% of EGX-listed companies, 20 companies, have reached the 30% target of female representation on their boards in 2020. 32 women need to be added annually to the boards of EGX-listed companies to reach the 2030 strategy target. The banking sector, 34 banks, has faced a slight decline in female representation on boards, dropping from 14.8% in 2019 to 13.7% in 2020, due to the exit of 3 women from the boards of banks. The percentage of banks with 0 women on boards decreased from 26.5% in 2019 to 20.6% in 2020. The percentage of banks with at least 1 woman on their boards increased from 73.5% in 2019 to 79.4% in 2020. 9% of banks, 3 banks, have reached the 30% target of female representation on their boards in 2020. 5 women need to be added annually to the boards of banks to reach the 2030 strategy target. The public enterprise sector, 114 companies, has encountered a positive improvement, reaching 8.7% in 2020 compared to 6.1% in 2019. Due to mergers and restructuring, the number of public enterprise companies decreased from 120 companies in 2019 to 114 companies in 2020. This explains the decrease in the number of women on boards from 43 women in 2019 to 38 women in 2020, while the female representation on boards indicator increased from 6.1% to 8.7% in 2020. The percentage of public enterprise companies with 0 women on boards decreased from 72.5% in 2019 to 71.9% in 2020. The percentage of public enterprise companies with at least 1 woman on their boards slightly increased from 27.5% in 2019 to 28.1% in 2020. 16.7% of public enterprise companies, 19 companies, have reached the 30% target of female representation on their boards in 2020. 10 women need to be added annually to the boards of public enterprise companies to reach the 2030 strategy target. The Financial Regulatory Authority companies, 583 companies, have significantly improved in female representation on boards, reaching 14.7% in 2020 compared to 11.2% in 2019. Due to the entry of 80 women on the boards of FRA companies. The percentage of FRA companies with 0 women on boards decreased from 58.8% in 2019 to 47.5% in 2020. The percentage of FRA companies with at least 1 woman on their boards increased from 41.2% in 2019 to 52.5% in 2020. 18.7% of FRA companies, 109 companies, have reached 30% target of female representation on their boards in 2020. 48 women need to be added annually to the boards of FRA companies to reach the 2030 strategy target. The overall gap in the above categories is 945 women to reach the 30% until 2030. Annually, 95 women are needed to join the boards of companies and banks to reach the 2030 strategy target of 30%. 32 women in EGX-listed companies, 5 women in banks, 10 women in public enterprise companies and 48 women in FRA companies need to be added annually to the boards. In order to support companies to reach this target, the Women on Boards Observatory has compiled a database of Egyptian board-ready women that reached over 450 qualified candidates and provides board placement service for companies. Partners of the Women on Boards Observatory represent a unique partnership, bringing together government, business associations, research institutions, international organizations, and non-government organizations. The Women on Boards Observatory works with a number of regional and national networks, including the 30% Club MENA chapter, the Boardroom Africa, Businesswomen of Egypt 21, and the Top 50 Most Influential Women Forum. Research shows that 1 woman is a token, 2 is presence, and 3 is voice.
Thank you, Aya, for this video. And I'm sorry if some of you had the quality of the video was not very good. At some areas, there was the sound was not going with what we were seeing. We will be sharing the link to the video, and hopefully you will be able to see it more clearly. So the video we just watched and the report we are launching today reflect the results of analyzing almost 1,000 companies, where over 700 women currently serve on boards. These are the 13% of female board members. The good news is that approximately 16% of the companies have which are about 150 companies, have reached the goal of 30% women on boards. The bad news is that 48% or 465 companies still have 0 women on boards. What we are doing to help these companies is what I want to turn to next. As mentioned, through our partnership with UN Women and the generous support of SIDA, we were able to create the Egyptian Board Ready Women database, which currently holds 480 qualified women ready to serve on boards. Because we are seeking to use diversity as one of the elements that improve corporate governance, and not only to tick the box of compliance, we developed a process whereby companies requesting a board nomination identify the competencies required, and we match them with the areas of expertise of women in our database. We want qualified women board members to be part of the solution to improve corporate governance in Egypt. Through our board placement service and database, we have nominated over 60 women to be placed on company boards, with 2 confirmed placements recently, 20 women to the board list, which is an international list of women that partners with 30% Club MENA so that they can serve on international corporate boards. We also nominated 11 women to the IFC Nominee Director Support Center in New York to be considered on corporate boards for their companies. In addition, today we celebrate the graduation of 55 more qualified candidates who are ready to serve on boards. The Egypt Board Ready Women database has an abundance of talent in sectors as diverse as banking, business services, communications, construction, energy, engineering, financial services, food industry, healthcare, manufacturing, law, pharmaceuticals, textiles, trade, and transport. Our key message today is to the 465 companies that have 0 women on boards. We can help, we will reach out to you, and we hope that this time next year, we will have 0 companies in this category. Now, allow me to introduce our dear friend, Dr. Yahya Al-Husseini, Corporate Governance Project Manager, Egypt and Levant Markets, IFC World Bank Group. Yahya has 25 years of professional experience in private sector development. He conducts in-depth diagnostics and assessments for private sector clients, provides technical support to regulators in developing effective governance frameworks, and helps in inaugurating and building the capacities of institutes of directors around the region. Welcome, Yahya, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ghada, dear distinguished keynote speakers, guests, and graduates, good afternoon. I'm very glad to join you today. That's a marvelous work that we are witnessing with this program. And we started the journey of corporate governance awareness, the company assessments, and the advisory to regulatory authorities, building capacities of EIODs, providing board training programs in Egypt and in MENA and in other regions as well, almost 15 years ago. And we cannot, on behalf of the IFC, be more proud today of the achievements we witness in Egypt, ranging from the different capacity building programs for board members and directors, and to the bold and unprecedented regulatory reforms by the Financial Regulatory Authority. The CDCP is one of IFC's flagship board programs. It has now over 10,000 graduates from Egypt alone as of last December. We're very glad to see this program growing and being orchestrated by our lead corporate governance partner, the Egyptian Institute of Directors. And a couple of years ago, with the Egyptian Institute of Directors and the American University in Cairo's Women on Boards Observatory, we expanded the CDCP to embrace the importance of gender equality for economic development and growth, an issue of even more importance given the devastating economic and social consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. And speaking of COVID, it has enormous negative impact, especially on women. And I quote a recent study by McKinsey that indicates that while women represent 39% of the global workforce, they accounted for 54% job losses. Another research shows that women have lost their jobs of about 1.8 times the rate of men. Hence, the term of she-cession was coined in the US, and it highlights the current economic recession on women's job and economic security. Women are suffering, no doubt. Companies are also suffering. They are losing female talent, and they are losing their female leaders. IFC is working with companies and international development partners around the world and in MENA as well to respond to the crisis, the COVID crisis, and prevent the gender gap from widening. We recently published a joint IFC UN Women report on the impact of COVID crisis on women in the marketplace. The report highlights concrete measures that companies can take to reduce the impact of the crisis. We also provided the business community, regulators, stakeholders with the empirical evidence linking gender diverse boards with improved financial performance of companies. We conducted a wide range of research studies around the world, including MENA and Egypt, to quantify the impact of gender diversity on boards of company on their financial performance. We make sure to include a gender lens in our investment and advisory work. For us as a global development financial institution, women currently represent 49% of IFC nominee directors on the boards of our client companies. We train female as well as male directors and senior executives like the CDCP program that we have graduates from today. We provide also advisory services to companies and banks, and we definitely include the nomination of female on the boards. And we also produce case studies, trailblazers, success stories, and leadership materials. To date, around 25% of the CDCP graduates are women, and we very much hope that to see this number growing and reflected in the corporate leadership. In closing, I would like again to commend the spectacular work of the FRA in issuing the recent regulations related to women on boards. The FRA has done its part. Now it's the companies and the business community turn to do their part. I would like also to praise the work done by the National Council for Women and the UN Women, and I applaud the outstanding performance of our partners, the Egyptian Institute of Directors, in actively increasing the awareness about women on boards and also in promoting corporate governance to the Egyptian community, and also to the AUC's remarkable work of the Women on Board Observatory in increasing the pipeline for female directors. And finally, to our distinguished trainers, thank you for your time, thank you for your effort, and thank you for the rich experience you bring to the program. And to each of today's graduates, congratulations on completing the CDCP program and earning your certificate. Mabruk, and I wish you all the best in your board placements, and I encourage you all to list yourself on the AUC's Women on Board Observatory, as well as on the FRA's mobile application for women directors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yahya, for your remarks, and we sincerely appreciate our partnership with IFC. Allow me now to introduce Dr. Mohamed Mustafa Siliman, Executive Director, Egypt Institute of Directors. Dr. Siliman has over 30 years of teaching experience in corporate governance, finance, and accounting in different countries such as Egypt, England, and Saudi Arabia. In addition, he has over 15 years working experience in designing and implementing corporate governance systems in registered companies in different countries. Dr. Siliman is a professor of accounting and finance at the Arab Academy for Science and Technology and was the chairman of Accounting and Finance Department. Welcome, Dr. Siliman. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Ghada. Dear ladies and gentlemen, as the Executive Director of the Egyptian Institute of Directors, I would like to thank the International Finance Corporation, IFC, the American University in Cairo, and the United Nations Women for their effort in sharing us the Women Corporate Director Certification Program. As you know, that international experience related to gender diversity in corporate board have shown better corporate performance. This is consistent with the positive indicators of the study conducted in Egypt. Indicators show that companies with women representation achieve higher profitability rate and better financial performance. The Women Corporate Director Certification Program was offered by IFC along with Egyptian Institute of Directors and in cooperation with the AUC. The program was designed to provide women with tools to improve corporate governance practice, which affects the long-term planning and procedures for the board, covering a wide range of corporate governance issues such as strategic management, internal control, risk management, internal auditing, board role in disclosure and transparency, and how to protect shareholder rights. And for your information, the Egyptian Institute of Directors graduated around 120 women in this certificate, and we're looking forward more women graduate and more empowering for women in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Siliman. And thank you to all our colleagues at the Egyptian Institute of Directors for the hard work in delivering the CDCP multiple times with us. I'm just waiting for confirmation that Dr. Omran has joined us. Sally, can you confirm that Dr. Omran has joined?
Yes, yes, he's gonna join now.
Okay, so it's my pleasure to introduce our guest of honor, Dr. Mohamed Omran, Chairman of the Financial Regulatory Authority, the regulator of non-banking financial institutions, and a professor of finance and at the Arab Academy for Science and Technology. Prior to his recent appointment, Dr. Omran was the executive chairman of the Egyptian Exchange. He was also the chairman of the Federation of Euro-Asian Stock Exchanges. Dr. Omran previously served as an economist at both the Arab Monetary Fund in Abu Dhabi and the International Monetary Fund in Washington, D.C. He was also an advisor to the Minister of Investment in Egypt. To us at the Women on Boards Observatory, Dr. Mohamed Omran is an active advocate and champion of gender diversity and corporate governance. He partnered with the Women on Boards Observatory when he was the chairman of the Egyptian Exchange, and again as president of the Financial Regulatory Authority. More importantly, he has led the board of the FRA to make landmark decisions to institutionalize gender diversity in Egypt. We welcome Dr. Omran, and the floor is yours.
Hello?
Hello, Dr. Omran. أهلا وسهلا.
Hi, how are you doing? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you, and welcome. I just made an introduction about you and saying that to us at the Women on Boards Observatory, you are the champion and advocate for women on boards.
Thank you very much, Professor. It's my pleasure indeed to be with you here today. I was planning to be with you since the beginning of the day, but given we have too much things to do, and given what's happening with the stock exchange, we are following up what's happening every single second. So I'm sorry for that, but very pleased that the issue about woman empowerment is taking a very serious direction, and I was very pleased to hear the speech during the Women's Day with the president himself and the first lady, in which is His Excellency's Minister of Planning and Economic Development, as well as Dr. Maya Morsi, talking about the decisions that has been taken by several authorities, including the financial regulatory authorities. I was very pleased about that, and I just would like to send a very clear message that we are really committed to continue our efforts as a financial regulatory authority to empowering women to take the highest level in our listed companies in the stock exchange, as well as for the non-bank financial institutions. As I was mentioning before, I'm expecting to have the second lady to be in the board of the Financial Regulatory Authority very soon, sometimes this month or at the latest, mid of April. And I think by that time we'll be in a position to ask our listed companies as well as the NBFIs to join the Financial Regulatory Authority and to have a 25% in their board of directors to be ladies, actually. We do not do that because of the general trend, but we believe in the ability of our ladies here in Egypt and the added value they can do for the financial sector, whether we are talking about the banking sector or the non-bank financial institutions. The figures you have about the representation of women on board for the NBFIs and the listed companies give us courage that by the year 2030, that will be able to achieve what is written in Egypt Vision 2030 about having 1/3 or 30% of women in leading positions. I'm hoping that this will happen even much sooner than 2030, because if we are able to have the decree of 25%, it means we are very close to the 30% that we are aiming by the year 2030. So we're trying to do our best, and as many of you understand that we get a pool of candidates just to give no excuses for the listed companies and the NBFIs that they do not have the right candidates to be a member of the board of directors of these companies. We believe that having women with us, this will have a positive impact operationally and financially on the listed companies as well as the NBFIs. Here in the Financial Regulatory Authority, I think in the last 2 to 3 years, we have taken several decrees from the board of directors as well as from the senior management and executive management here in the Financial Regulatory Authority. As I was mentioning before, in the last 3 years, we did recruit between 70 to 80 newcomers to the Financial Regulatory Authority. I can claim at least 2/3 of them, they are ladies. So we are increasing the number of women as well as the percentage of them in the Financial Regulatory Authority. The highest levels we have, which is the managers of departments, the biggest 4 departments, we have 50% of them are women. Recently, I did issue a decree to appoint a lady to head the Regional Center for Sustainable Finance. And just last week, I did issue another decree to recruit an executive director for the arbitration center that has been issued by a decree from the president, and she's a lady as well. And I think in a couple of weeks' time, we will have the 3rd executive director, because we are looking now for an executive director for the Financial Services Institute, which is part of the Financial Regulatory Authority, and I think she is lady as well. So actually, in our knowledge hub, we have 4 entities: the Egyptian Institute of Directors, in which Dr. Mustafa is executive director, but the other 3 centers and institute, I think so far we did recruit 2 women, and I think the 3rd one is coming very soon. So this is give you a flavor how the Financial Regulatory Authority is really keen about empowering women. In the meantime, in our workplace, we are trying to empower women. We are trying to put them in the same level as men, and we are doing our best to make sure that their participation in everything we are doing here in the FRA is reflected in their motivation, in their dignity, in their loyalty to the Financial Regulatory Authority. And I'm very pleased about that. And whatever is needed from us as the FRA to empower women, we will be ready to do whatever it is needed for that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Omran. As usual, you're walking the talk. And we are very, very proud to be partnering with FRA. So allow us now to celebrate the distinguished women who completed the Corporate Directors Certification Program. We have a presentation showing the level of talent and expertise that has been part of this program. So within the framework of the joint program, as we mentioned before, promoting productive employment and decent work for women in Egypt, Jordan, and Palestine that is implemented by UN Women and the International Labour Organization in partnership with the National Council for Women and the Ministry of Manpower in Egypt through a generous fund by the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, UN Women and the Women on Boards Observatory have been able to graduate 77 female participants in different programs, out of whom 55 are certified female directors and are graduating today. A very high caliber group of women across different sectors, as you will see on the screen now when we share the presentation. Unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions, we are not able to hand our certificates in person, but the certificates were sent out to all participants by email and courier. During the past year, the Women on Boards Observatory both hosted and joined many national, regional, and international events promoting gender diversity on boards and in senior positions to increase the pool of women ready to be placed on boards with our partners, IFC, EIOD, National Institute of Governance and Sustainable Development, Ministry of Planning, Financial Regulatory Authority, the Egyptian Exchange, the Boardroom Africa, 30% Club MENA, AmCham Egypt and AmCham MENA, and the Women Economic Forum, the Africa CEO Forum, the Arab International Women's Forum, the Global Diversity and Inclusion Summit, and the Women in Business Conference. As we mentioned previously, we invited champion executives to follow diversity and sponsor women to leading positions within their companies. Also, we welcome key partners and networks to join the observatory and coordinate our respective efforts to reach our targeted results. As you can see from the roster of women who are graduating today on the screen, we have a diversity of talent. We have a very large pool of qualified women, and they are certified and ready to serve on board. I'd also like to thank the AUC teams who made all this possible. The executive education team, Marlene Michel and Marwa Negm, for implementing the training programs with EIOD. The Women on Boards Observatory team, Celia Abbas, Shireen Al-Aisawi, Nermeen Al-Sayed, and Dalia Al-Hamamsi, Farah Kabish, for all your hard work. Thank you very much. And of course, there are many other colleagues behind the scenes, Aya, Salma, Shireen, and Dalia. Thank you all. After we go through the pictures and names and titles of the distinguished women who are graduating today, we will be hearing from 3 representatives who will say a few words about their experience and the Corporate Director Certification Program they attended. We will be hearing from Hiba Rifi, who is a corporate credit director at Sarwa Capital Investment from the financial services sector, and from Samar Abul Khair, managing director, Content Me, from the communications and marketing sector, and from Shahira Osman, regional marketing manager, branded workshops, Asia, Middle East, Africa, and Europe, Chevron, from the energy sector. So as soon as we go through the presentation of the names and pictures of the women graduating, we will hear from the three representatives of each cohort that graduated from the corporate directors program. Of course, there were other training programs offered, like finance for non-financial managers and the advanced management program. These are short programs that also enhance the professional development of the women, but today we are focusing on the certification of corporate directors. So as we watch the presentation, I'd like to ask Heba Rifi to start, please, with your comments. Shireen, if we can unmute Heba Rifi, Corporate Credit Director, Sarwa Capital Investment, from cohort 1.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ghada, for the presentation. Thank you for having me on the panel, such great and honorable attendees. It's my pleasure to be speaking on behalf of the CDCP cohort of the 2020. First, I'd like to thank the IFC, the UN Women, SIDA, Swedish Government Agency for Development Cooperation, FRA, EIOD, National Council for Women, Women on Boards Observatory, and the AOC, of course, for their tremendous efforts and dedicating their resources towards the success of this CDCP program. Thank you for creating such a positive vibe in the Egyptian economy. Without your dedication and true belief in women empowerment, this success wouldn't have been possible. First off, I would like to thank Dr. Mohamed Omran and extend this thanks to him for his true belief in women empowerment and his support, especially support for the role of women in the Egyptian economy, especially with his decision to encourage Egyptian listed companies to engage at least one woman board member on board of their board of directors, and also for creating the Women Empowerment mobile app. I would like to highlight that we all rejoiced when Dr. Mohamed Omran announced the pleasant news on 28th of February, when he announced that FRA is taking women empowerment to the next level by being the role model and engaging another women board member on their board of directors in preparation for the encouragement of the Egyptian listed companies to have another board member, women board member on their board of directors. Thank you for these efforts. Your efforts are really valued and appreciated, Dr. Mohamed. Thank you very much. Next, I would like to thank Dr. Ghada Houidi, of course, thank you, sir. Women on Boards Observatory and the AOC, of course. The success of this course was a great challenge. I'd like to share some pleasant memories because now they are pleasant memories. We started this course in Feb 2020, and we attended only 2 physical sessions. And then came March 2020, and you know all what happened. The pandemic was declared, the virus started to spread. We all were frustrated. I cannot tell you how professional and amazing the team of the AUC and EIOD has handled the transformation of the course to the online mode. We're really how they tackled our frustrations. The month of Ramadan, the summer vacation, we still remember this. We thank you for this. Thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for being such great supporters and believers in us. the huge efforts extended by your team, Dr. Ghada, and the AUC, the board of the Women on Boards Observatory are really valued and appreciated. The success of this course in itself is a living proof what women can do, what professional women can do when they are given the responsibility. Thank you very much. My third note goes to my colleagues and fellow attendees. I'm really honored to have shared this journey, this successful journey with you. Not only we have enriched our technical and professional knowledge, but by the end of the course, we became friends. We became sharing one goal. We intend to continue keeping the lights on the torch, still lit light. We'll keep the light going on because we are taking the responsibility now. As I said at the beginning, you have created a positive vibe in the workplace, in the Egyptian economy. We will continue to support fellow women, and we will continue to be role models and the trend setters. Congratulations to all of you, my fellow colleagues and graduates. I'm really proud to be among you, and I call you to be so proud of what you have achieved and to build on it. My third note will have some, I would like to share with you some very insightful statistics, really, about engaging women in the decision-making and women empowerment in general. First statistic is about that women have the lowest credit default ratio among all borrowers. Second, that engaging more women on boards of companies is directly associated with increased profitability. The third one is that, and that was, I was really surprised yesterday when I was reading on the platform, the social media of UN Women, they published that a 10% increase in women on parliaments of countries was directly associated with 2.24 decrease in CO2 emissions. So for these facts and for such statistics, we have all the reasons to continue to push for more women empowerment, to call on international and national organizations to continue to support and give further efforts and dedicate further resources towards the success of women engagement and empowerment for the society in general and economy in specific, of course. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Congratulations to my fellows, and thank you, Dr.
Thank you so much, Heba. I mean, this is, I feel very proud and humbled. You are a demonstration of the qualified women we would like to see on boards. And thank you for the statistics you mentioned. And thank you to you and your cohort for your resilience in continuing the program under the changed circumstances. So thank you and congratulations to all the distinguished ladies of cohort 1. Now I turn to Samar Abul Khair, Managing Director, Content Me, representing cohort 2.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, honorable guests attending this afternoon ceremony, staff members, fellow graduates, group coordinator, families and friends, good afternoon. On behalf of myself and my dear fellow CDCP graduates of Run 2, first and foremost, I would like to extend our heartfelt and sincere thanks to the American University in Cairo, School of Business, the International Finance Corporation, and the Egyptian Institute of Directors. I would also like to extend special thanks for the Women on Board Observatory for their initiative and for selecting this wonderful group of women in my class, and the UN for Women for promoting this program for us. We thank all the leaders of the Graduate School of Business who facilitated a path through all the difficulties and obstacles during the tough times of this global detailed pandemic crisis. This reflects their extreme level of professionalism and the importance they place for this graduate program. Last but not least, I would like to express our profound gratitude and sincere thanks for our group coordinator for her unwavering support and great help during the complicated and unusual circumstances of COVID-19. The CDCP program promised delivering, and I quote, tools to tackle improvement of corporate governance practices, which impact the long-term planning and procedures of the board. and I believe I received more than it promised, with the exchanged experience demonstrated by my diversified, competent colleagues and instructors in our discussions and engagement during the program. The same level of diversification that we will encounter when we experience board directorship in different corporations, equipping us to capitalize on these differences to bring out the best of these entities. In my field of work, I meet different companies every day, and I realize how significantly critical and important corporate governance is in all stages of business maturity, an aspect of management that does not receive enough attention, although it helps streamline business growth and elevation. I can confidently say that the CDCP program serves to recover this deficit in businesses perfectly. While I am grateful to have acquired this certificate, to me, this certificate represents more than the education inside it. It represents the empowerment that these organizations who endorsed it are willing to give to us as professional individuals and entrepreneurs, particularly as women. It represents your belief in the change we can make to this world, one board at a time, one corporate at a time. As professional individuals, whether in our careers or within our entrepreneurship ecosystems, we work hard to reach higher ground every day. And as women, we strive even harder for this higher ground. We work against business challenges, social challenges, endless responsibilities, and most of all, we work towards changing perceptions and common norms to alter existing situations for better ones in our industries, in our communities, and ultimately in our countries. A program like this helps us feel that we are not alone. The program energizes and empowers women on boards and in leadership positions, accelerating competitive advantages. It also helps companies maximize the benefits from a board and senior leadership team that respects a diversity of thought, skills, and experience. For my fellow graduates and myself, individually, our experiences here were unique. But together, we share the common bond of our willingness and determination to take what we have learned to our next chapters and mobilize the situation for the fortunate boards where we will participate. I believe we can stretch our abilities to do more, and I know I will do more. I congratulate you once again, and I wish you all the success in your business and personal lives.
Thank you so much, Summer, and a board would be lucky to have you. I completely agree. So congratulations to you and to all the distinguished ladies of cohort 2, and special thanks to IFC and EIOD for the content they provide that you acknowledge was relevant and was important, and you see how it can impact corporate governance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now I turn to Shahira Osman, Regional Marketing Manager, Chevron. Shahira.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ghada, and what a wonderful and inspiring words. Excellence, doctors, and distinguished guests. Allow me to share a few personal thoughts. On behalf of the last round of CDP, Cohort 3, I would like to thank our sponsors and organizers, the AUC, the International Financial Corporation, the Egyptian Institute of Directors, the Finance Regulatory Authorities, UN Women, Egypt National Council for Women, SIDA, and the Embassy of Sweden to Egypt. My personal experience. So when I read about the program through LinkedIn and I applied for the certification, all I had in mind was to learn some more about corporate governance, to go through the modules and get certified so I can advance my career. Well, I was wrong. Having gone through all the modules, I was totally mesmerized by the amount of content, the insight shared, the skill set and experiences cascaded by our instructors and mentors, and the dedication and patience to ensure we all get answers to our question, easy or difficult as they can be. And speaking of the networking, while sitting here in Dubai, how can I ever met a super IBMer, a telco HR director, an auditor SME from Jordan, or an NGO manager based in Alexandria? And the list goes on. A great honor to meet and network with all the amazing ladies from all walks of life and diverse industries. As I reflect on the great luggage the program gave us and how this will help us spearhead our career and leadership position across different sectors and businesses, how we came to understand corporate governance at its core, its standards, how to maximize its effectiveness in business life, how an effective board member role should be, and which behavior to adopt and display. As I share a collective sentiment with my fellow ladies, This course was certainly and is by far the most insightful and beneficial I had since years. It did bring strategic depth to our experiences and knowledge. Being a full e-learning experience, it gave me the chance, along with other females outside Egypt, to be part of the journey and to actively give back to our countries and be ready to serve as directors in different entities. I was surely very lucky to get exposed to our module about women in leadership and how solid is the impact of the female presence alongside male presence as directors in boards across Egypt, Middle East, and globally, and the 2030 vision of women empowerment and making the change happen. Being inclusion and diversity ambassador myself in my current corporate life and a strong advocate of women in leadership, empowering women is a must for advancing into the new millennium in Egypt across public and private entities, NGOs, and other charitable organizations. This course should really be a cornerstone to all women in Egypt, not only aspiring directors, but young interns, women who are looking to spearhead their career. I would like to add that despite our fancy title and successful careers, we are mothers, wives, daughters, sisters, and at the end of each day, and inside each girl that dreams to make a difference in her society and be the she in capital letters, a board director, a chairwoman, a dean, and why not, perhaps a future prime minister. I would like to leave you all with a quote from the development female activist and CEO of Kashf, Koshane Zafar. She said, corporate governance is about shining a light through the whole, and keep shining, ladies.
Thank you very
much,
Shahira. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us from the UAE. So congratulations to the distinguished ladies of cohort 3. We will now again run the presentation that includes the pictures and the names of the ladies graduating, so that we all again see the level of talent that is available. And as I mentioned, our next steps as the Women on Boards Observatory will be reaching out, especially to the organizations with 0 women on boards, to try to match as much as possible their requirements and have board placements, so that this time next year, when we celebrate the 2021 Annual Women on Boards Monitoring Report, we will have 0 companies in the category of 0 women on boards. Thank you all very, very much for being with us today. Congratulations to the distinguished ladies. Thank you very, very much to all our partners. Special thanks to Dr. Maya Morsi, Dr. Mohamed Omran, and of course to UN Women and the Swedish Embassy, IFC, and the Egyptian Institute of Directors. Thank you all. Thank you all again. Thank you, ladies. Congratulations, our dear graduates. And see you next year, same time with the 2021 Annual Monitoring Report. Thank you very much.